Cure for a hard heart. Now, if I asked you all, do you have a hard heart? Probably not too many would say, oh yeah. But I think that if we're humble, let's have a show of hands. That we might see differently a bit. So here's Mark Twain for starters. He wrote, "I'm an old man and have known a great many troubles." Then he says, "but most of them never happened." Now, 400 years earlier, this guy Montaigne, a French philosopher, well known back then, in 15-something, he wrote the same thing. He said, "A man is not hurt so much by what happens as by his opinion of what happens." Do you see the similarity? I mean, we can blow things up, and it can seem worse than it really is. Our hearts trick us. So the verse, I didn't put it on the slide, but it's Jeremiah 17, 9 and 10 here. Usually I only quote 9, but can you relate to this? I can. I believe it's true with all my heart. You know, a few months ago I heard a guy say, a preacher, a good one, he says, "I believe everything in there. I believe it all." And I'd never heard it expressed like that, I think, though it made me think, well, I do too. And then I want to say it to you. Maybe you'd never heard it, like I've never heard it. But I do. I believe it all. And it's helpful. I mean, pick your story, pick your section, pick your... Here it is. Here's another one. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? Okay, that's usually all I quote. Do you see the truth of it? Why would Paul say in Romans 9, "I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I do want to do"? You know, he's fessing up. Why would Paul, of all people, the greatest Christian ever, let's say, he was faulty too. He didn't have it all too. How about you? You see how I'm trying to draw us in here? So the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Wow, that's sick. Desperately sick. And then verse 10, who can understand it? If the Lord, now God speaking, "I, the Lord, search the heart and test the mind to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds." Okay, so when our heart is sick and we follow it, we get according to our deeds. You know, didn't anyone watch the World Series yesterday?
Oh, man.
We did. And every commercial break is either about drinking alcohol or about betting. It's all about betting. Wow. It's just flooded in the last couple of years. I mean, the pendulum has just swung way over. And what's going to happen? The heart is desperately sick. Who can understand it? And so what starts as an innocent thing, what's the number? It's like 10% of gamblers can't stop. Or drinkers. You know, I used to drink a lot. And I didn't do very well at it. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't stop. Well, gambling, I bet it would have been similar. Thankfully, it wasn't so available to me. I'm glad I was poor in high school, or else I'd have done the heavier drugs like the richer kids would have. You know what I'm saying? I just would have. Okay, so the heart is deceitful above all things. So the Lord searches the heart and tests the mind to give every man according to his ways. So when we willfully choose our way, is he getting after us? Or is he just saying, this is just the rules? If you do foolishly, you get bad results. If the sign says bridge out and we punch it, you know, it doesn't go well. So, God is for us. If God is for us, who can be against us? But there's this truth going on. Now, Daniel 4, I didn't put this on there either, but in Daniel it talks about King Nebuchadnezzar. And Daniel is an official in the government and good, and God's man. But the king is, he's Frank Sinatra, the original. I did it my way, right? I mean, wow. And he gets a vision. God gives King Nebuchadnezzar, and nobody knows it, but Daniel knows it. And Daniel tells the vision, and Daniel says, "What? King, may this be for your enemies and not for you." But he wouldn't be dissuaded. He wouldn't, because his heart was deceitful above all things. Well, I'm all powerful. And so the king, he gets a whole year of, it didn't come about for a whole year. Finally, the vision, the prophecy comes about. And first comes boasting from the king. Is not this Babylon which I have built? That's what he says. Wow. So, this is boasting. Is this not Babylon which I have built? That's boasting. Next comes credit taking. By my mighty power. Okay? I did that. The bigger you are, and he was big. And he was just overcome with his lusts of these delusions. And he wouldn't hear counsel. He wouldn't hear it. And lastly, glory seeking. He says, by my mighty power, for the glory of my majesty. Wow, he was just overcome, just all in, desperately sick. So boasting, credit taking, and glory seeking are classic symptoms of the spiritual sickness called pride. And have you taken your temperature recently? Because pride, we just got to fight with it all the time. How are you doing with that? I remember Tom Brady. I showed that clip a few months ago. Tom Brady, he's the GOAT. Greatest of all time. That's GOAT. More Super Bowl rings. He was the quarterback. He was the greatest. He thought it, he believed it. And then they get him on 60 Minutes some years later, and he admits he's got the rings, and then he says, is this all there is? Wow, what an admission. He's King Nebuchadnezzar, and it wasn't all fulfilling. It was lacking. These guys that won the World Series last night, they're going to find out too. This wasn't everything, after all. It's great. I'm glad for them. And in fact, did you see the interviews right afterward? I only watched for like 5 minutes, but they got their mic in front of, they want that initial boom reaction from how happy they are. And when he got to Freddie Freeman, the first baseman, you know what he said? It was so fantastic. And I'm not even positive he's a believer, but I bet he is. Because you can't not take credit and glory. Like Nebuchadnezzar, he didn't do it. He said, I'm glad for Clayton Kershaw. That's what he said. It was fantastic. Didn't take credit, didn't glory, Anyway, he was just happy for this other guy that's a Hall of Famer, will be in 5 years. Clayton Kershaw's a pitcher, top 3 left-handed pitchers ever, and he's just now retired. So in 5 years, he'll be a 100 ballot, 100%. Anyway, and here's a guy who could have said how great it is for me, and I did my best, and whatever. No. He says, I'm glad for Clayton Kershaw. That's awesome. That's an aside. That was just extra credit right there. But in other words, some of these guys get it. Some of us get it. Some of us won't get it as good. Some of us, we just are in the journey. Here we are, in the journey. And I want to see this as we've been reading through Mark, where does our help come from? I don't think Tom Brady was getting help. I haven't read anything that says he's a believer yet. I don't know. But what matters is you and me. We get to consider these things. So from Mark 2:17 here, we'll be in Mark mostly, if not all. But here, Mark 2:17 says, here's a humble gauge. And when Jesus heard it, he said to them, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." Wow. These guys his guys got to hear this and consider it. Will we hear it and consider it? Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. So, who do you consider yourself to be? It's easy to get confused about, well, I'm not that bad, because I'm not, right? Those guys out there that do the bad, worse, well, I'm not like them. I saw a guy say this, that it's in our DNA that the default is self-justification. That's the default. We all have self-justification. I'm not that bad. I'm doing okay. I'm going to church after all, so I'm getting better. It's rubbing off a little bit. In other words, it's, wait a minute, is that how does it think of it? So we're challenged. So if I consider myself to be a sinner, I need His grace. I'm saved by His grace. Oh, right. There's some desperateness going on. I've said that many times now, that we need desperateness. I've said desperateness is a good place to be. And I said that to my pastor friend, and you know what he said? He said a better saying. He said, desperateness is a choice. Wow. Good one, I said. We can choose it. Here, I do have needs. I need Him, the great physician, because I'm desperately sick. I'm a sinner. My heart is sick. It says it in Jeremiah. You see how I'm putting this together? So, that's the joke about, if we have a show of hands, if you've maintained your humility. It would wreck it if you raised your hand, right? Because, well, every day we have to kind of re-up. All right, so we're going to be in Mark 6. And I'd just like you to turn there if you've got your Bibles handy. It's just to consider the headings in Mark 6 as we get into a little bit. So at first, the first heading is Jesus is rejected in his hometown, Nazareth. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Well, he's rejected there. I recently went to my hometown, for my brother's 80th there, and I missed the red carpet. Looking around, and where is it? I landed in Fresno at the end. Anyway, you get the joke, right? Jesus is rejected in Nazareth. Okay, how would that have gone? Well, he understood it. How do you think he felt about it? I don't think he felt good. He would have seen his classmates, his relatives, his brothers and sisters. He had a bunch of brothers and sisters. And so, that's not very nice. Then next is the death of John the Baptist, his cousin. How would that have gone? Wow. I've said this many times. We used to board horses, right? And I was in charge of taking care of them. Fed them, cleaned their stalls. When the kids were there, they got to do it too. Heidi too. She's pretty good at flinging manure. Anyway, don't let that get out. Anyway, but I also, as maybe you have, if you've looked around, noticed horses that aren't cared for. They don't get the farrier. They don't get regular food or good food, or, and think of how many horses are out there. There's thousands. And God sees them all, sees the suffering ones. And that's animals. What about people? He sees it all. Well, here's Jesus, and he knew what would happen, I suppose. Anyway, his cousin is brutally beheaded in an ugly fashion. His head put on a platter. I mean, just picturing it is just sick. And yet, this happened. So, rejected in his hometown, his cousin is killed. Next, he feeds 5,000. Now, do you see verses 30 and 31? I don't think I put that on there either, but I'm going to get to the screen in a moment. But in 30 and 31 it says, the apostles returned to Jesus. Oh, I forgot. He sends out the 12. Sorry. I missed that whole section. Anyway, in verse 7 starts, Jesus sends out the apostles. How do you think that went? Is he just confident they're just going to do great? I bet, just like any teacher that cares about those young people that are going to go out, he was concerned. He's praying for them. He's helping them. And that's on his mind. It's not like he's just sitting back at the throne drinking his whatever. Anyway, I'm just trying to paint a picture of him living difficult days of ministry. And finally, verse 30. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. Do you see that? I mean, there were so many flocking around and coming, and they couldn't eat. Does that ever happen? Did you miss a meal last week? I bet if you did, you know what day it was. That's the way of it. We don't miss. And so, it's a circus how busy and difficult things were. And so, then he feeds the 5,000, and I bet he was sweating. How do you dish off that much food? Food for 5,000. How many semi-trailers is that? Right? I'm just adding it up. We don't know what exactly it looked like, but that was 5,000 men. Then there's women and children. 10, 15,000? That's a lot of food. What did they do for that? Well, there's only 13 of them, and maybe there was some more helpers, but it was work. And anyway, that happened. Then, finally, finally we get to where we're going. Ooh, Dave, finally we get there. Verse 45. Let's pick it up there. It says, immediately he made the disciples, so after this, at the end of the day, made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had taken leave of them, he went up on the mountain to pray. Okay, so we can see the picture. And then apparently, the picture is he prayed all night. Because, it goes on, verse 47. And when evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land. Then, 48, and he saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against them. And about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them. Okay, fourth watch is almost morning, and it might be morning. And he saw them. They're in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. It's 10 miles across. And there he sees, at night, in a storm, and they're afraid. And then he has to walk 4 or 5 miles on water. Okay, this is the picture. He hasn't slept. And how long? I don't know. But man, he's a worker. You know any workers out there? Many of you, of course, are workers. And this is Jesus' lot. So then, about the 4th watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. Wow. I mean, it just makes, talk about awe and wonder. This is how he does it. He meant to pass them by, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, "Ah!" Something like that, right? I mean, freak out. They know they're in the middle, and there goes a guy. For they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, "Hey, take heart, it is I. Don't be afraid." 51, and he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased, and they were utterly astounded, for they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. There it is, their hearts were hardened. See, it's not really an accusation against you, or me, or them. It's a matter of fact. You know, Mark doesn't even mention the whole Peter episode, where Peter says, you know, he gets a wild idea. Man, I want to come out to, Master, call me out and I could come to you. All right, come on, you know. And he knows what's going to happen. Peter sinks, save me, and he's sinking and he lifts him out. It's fantastic. It's filled with trouble, though. And especially, they did not understand about the loaves, right? How long have they been with Jesus? He had sent them out on missionary journey. They healed people and cast out demons themselves. Man, topsy-turvy. Then they're in the middle of the lake thinking they're going to die. They're fishermen, and it's that big of a storm. And then Jesus speaks, and the wind stops. And the waves go, and it's calm. And then they're immediately at the shore, it says. You know, all of these things, and then they look at each other. Who is this guy? You know, with fear. They not knowing how to, they're with him. They're with the Son of God, the one that we study of and pray to and are figuring out. Are you figuring out? We are until we're done. And so it's a good place to be, to consider, man, my heart isn't all the way there. I haven't figured him out all the way yet. The apostles didn't. So why do I think, if I've never walked with him and done all this with him personally, I can't think I'm really ahead of them? I used to think that. Man, I wouldn't have acted that way, those boneheads, you know, right? Have you had those thoughts? I have. But now, not so fast. They didn't understand. They didn't grasp it all. The transforming up here takes a long time, does it? How long does it take? Maybe a lifetime. All right. That was chapter 6. If you turn the page, if you need to chapter 8 and verse 14. I want to pick it up again because it mentions hard-heartedness here again in this section. It says, now they had forgotten to bring bread. And they had, I mean, they're busy. I get it. And they had only one loaf with them. And he cautioned them, saying, watch out. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And then they began to discuss with one another the fact that they had no bread. And 17, and Jesus, aware of this, said to them, why are you discussing the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Okay? Now, what's Jesus' purpose in saying this? To belittle them? To get rid of those thoughts? He's only saying these things to help, to encourage them. Come on already, he's saying. Not with condemnation, but with encouragement. Come on, you guys. This is not the point. Right? And he would call us saying, come on, keep coming. We got a long way to go. Let's keep coming. Are your hearts hardened? Would you hear that? You'd have to be humble to hear it. Because if you got pride, you're going to put the thought off. No, Dave, my heart's not. I'm not like those people, That's pride. Can we admit to that? That it could be near? That I still have to get pride out of the way daily or something like that. And then 18 says, then he finishes his thought, having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? See, this remembering is a clue. Why do we read every day? Why do we read and see something we've highlighted and think, I don't ever remember seeing this before, but that's my handwriting as I highlighted it. Have you ever had those thoughts? Okay, that's because we need to read regularly to be reminded, whether we hear it for the first time or for the 10th time. I need to hear what he's saying so that I can remember. Part of the equation. Are you reading? Oh, I pick it up again. Read the chapter a day so we can remember. That guy that drilled my well, Sean, maybe you'd write his name on your list. Pray for him. I'm after him to read every day. Just read the one chapter a day, Sean, I said. And he, okay, you guys all, okay, I'm going to have to visit your church. He lives in Cottage Grove, He might come. And I said, you'd be a rock star because you hit water and we all prayed for you. Really? He might show up. Randy invited people Friday night. He and Jess and Tammy and Martha gave out the little Jesuses. And, what about your church? And, I'd like to come. Well, they're not here. So he's going to have to call them up. He's going to have to keep praying for them. And maybe those people, maybe they'll come. Maybe they'll start reading a bit, listening to God every day. What a good habit, right? Did you brush your teeth this morning? What a good habit. When you're older, like Hank, you still have your teeth. What a good thing. That's the goal, right? What's the goal with the reading? Listen to God every day. I want to hear what he says. I need to remember because I'll forget. Verse 19, Jesus gives them more. When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many basketfuls of broken pieces did you take up? And they said, 12. And the 7 for the 4,000, how many basketfuls of broken pieces did you take up? And they said to him, 7. And he said to them, do you not yet understand? He's trying to get them to connect the dots. Come on. He's saying, come on. I'm for you. Come on. It's not whether you brought bread. I'm with you, the Son of God. Did you catch that in that Ferris, Lord Jesus? Ruler of all nature, Son of God. And talk about a song of worship. It's like, man, I'm in. And he wants us there. He's just trying to help us. He's just trying to help us. He's trying to help us because in our hearts we'll leave as Albert Barnes says, the erroneous doctrines like leaven aside and cling on to Jesus. And it matters about who we're listening to. Hank, I asked him yesterday, since you quit listening to the regular news, the national news, whichever flavor you like, And now he's only listening to Christian-based, there's 2 emails we get. And that's all he's listening to. And it sums up the events, so you feel like you're up to speed generally on what's going on. But it's the secular media, they have to say what the secular bosses want them to say. Anyway, I said, Hank, are you better? I am. It's so much. I fear a lot less because they made me think about what to fear and throw them up. You know, and all of that was done because he quit it. And I hope many of you are doing the same. We don't want to listen to the people that are making noise. Instead, we're listening to him. Listening to him. Listening to him. More and more. Are you progressing? Is there evidence in the last year that, man, I am closer? And if you're not, I'm not trying to condemn you, right? Trying to encourage you. Encouragement. He's saying, come on, keep coming. Lastly, chapter 9. Can you turn to page 933 to 37? And they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, what were you discussing on the way? And he didn't call them boneheads. He said, but they kept silent, for on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. I mean, it just keeps coming up, right? And he sat down and called the 12, and he said to them, if anyone would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all. You know, you'd think they would let that stick, and it did eventually. And so wherever we are, let's say it's okay, but today's a new day. I want to keep coming today. Um, 36, and he took a child and put him in the midst of them, and taking him in his arms, he said to him, what a lucky child, right? Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me. He's telling us it's the small things that matter. It's these little... He wants us to listen to him instead of arguing about who's the greatest. You know, keeping up with the Joneses. However, you know, we've got a lot against us. And yet, we're changing over, listening to him more and more. For in James 4:6, it says, but he gives us more grace. That is why Scripture says God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. This is the greatest encouragement ever. He says, come near to God, and he will come near to you. There is no greater invitation ever than this. Come near to God, and he'll come near to you. He will come near to you. Us nobodies. It's awesome. Wash your hands, you sinners. Can we take being called what we are? And purify your hearts, you double-minded. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. It's awesome. He will lift you up. You know, Mark Twain, or that other guy, said, so much depends on our opinion of ourselves and what's going on. You know, Mark Twain, my opinion of it was a lot worse than what it really was. But our opinion of what happens to us, it's up to us. We're in charge of that opinion. You know, somebody was encouraged on that paper I sent you, or handed out, on one side is this prayer, this simple, awesome prayer from the year 500 and something. You know, those guys, were they smarter than us? I think so. Anyway, there's another one. Here's another prayer. I'm going to ask you to bow. And this Evelyn Underhill, born in 1875, she wrote this prayer. So let's bow in prayer and close. Lord, I'm going out from this silence. Teach me to be more alert, humble, expectant than I have been in the past. Ever ready to encounter you in quiet, homely ways. In every appeal to my compassion, every act of unselfish love which shows up and humbles my imperfect love, may I recognize you, still walking through the world. Give me that grace of simplicity which alone you can receive your mystery. Which alone can receive your mystery. Come and abide with me. Meet me. Walk with me. Enlighten my mind. And then come in. Enter my humble life with its poverty and its limitations as you entered the stable of Bethlehem, the workshop of Nazareth, the cottage of Emmaus. Bless and consecrate the material of that small and ordinary life. Feed and possess my soul. In Jesus' name, amen. If you and I are humble, we can receive that prayer. Say it. And actually, I printed that out and have a few copies up here if that's of interest to you. Let's stand together.